Hey everyone, I thought we would do a Moody Shabby decor video, and I hope you are ready for lots of techniques and a lot of fun. This first project is a silver tray that I have already painted black and sealed, and I'm going to start with some beautiful greens. We're going to give this a dreamy, shabby, dark, moody background using several of the DIY colors in the clay paint line. I'm going to be using Gypsy Green and Mint Chip along with a pre-mixed color that I have of some of the DIY paints. And we do end up using one of the yellows as well, Monet's Garden. We just use several. I start adding as I see the need for a different variation of green. I'm just using a round sponge. Actually, it's the same sponge, but I cut it in a round shape to kind of help with those harsh lines. And I'm just using the sponge right now, doing the patting motion, but we do end up adding water a little later on. You can start out with the water. It does help blend very well, but at this time I didn't feel like I needed it. I'm just adding that dark green mixture that I made kind of around the edge. So I want my darker area to blend in with the black, and instead of a kind of a light halo on this, we're going for more of a dark halo so that it goes from the very light green to a dark green and then into the black. Now that I have that base layer down, I'm just trying to figure out exactly how I want this to look. I've dried that a little bit, and now I'm going to start adding those greens with the yellows that I really want to be kind of blotchy, not really smoothed out. I want you to notice them a little bit more than the whole background, but I don't want a lot of that on there. So I'm going to blend this and then add a little bit more of that lighter back to the center and then that darker on the edge, kind of like I do until I get it the way that I want it. I am using a little bit of water to help blend this in because, like I said, I wanted it to be a little bit blotchy, but you know, the paintbrush, I didn't want it to show a ton of strokes. So I wanted to add a little more of that lighter back in to give that center its lighter space. I really like that when doing this. I like the center to be lighter. You know, I haven't done the center darker and then worked out to light. We might do that sometime in the future. That would probably be pretty cool. But once we get this, then we're going to go back around the edge with that dark green, and then we're gonna kind of finish this off on around the edge with some more of that black because I have another plan for that. I'm excited for you guys to see. This tray really turns out so neat. I love it. It's my favorite, I think. Well, I don't know. There's a project coming up that I really love. I hope you guys love it as much as I do, but you'll have to let me know. It's quite intense. So basically here, I'm just dragging some of that black out into our background. I do get it a little far out and have to add some green back into it, but that's okay. It's part of the process, and I love this process, so it doesn't bother me to have to go back and kind of tweak things once I get them just a little bit too far. So I'm going to be using this IOD trimmings stamp. I don't know if that's the name of it. I'll try to have it linked in the description box below. But what I want to do is go around the scallops of this tray and use this it's just a plain generic folk art acrylic gold paint. And I'm just going to do this haphazardly around, nothing crazy. And even though I didn't stamp this perfectly, it ends up looking like it's just stamped so well, even though I just kind of went back in when I missed spots. And I really love how this turns out. So I'm super excited about this technique. I haven't done this before, stamped around the edge on the wide part of the tray. So it was a lot of fun. If you need any of these products, my affiliate link will be in the description box below. It's Aunt Bee's Attic. She has $9 flat rate shipping, and she has a lot of the products that I'm using. Now, I don't use all name brand products when I'm doing this. Like, this is folk art gold paint. I just use whatever I see in my stash that's going to fit with whatever project that I'm doing. You all know how I am. I love some of the higher end products, but I use a lot of more cost effective products too. Look at how this looks. Isn't that gorgeous? And I love how the black and the greens do together or blend together so well. So now what we're going to use is this IOD stamp in Kindest Regards and a StazOn black ink. Now, StazOn is my favorite ink over any of the inks because once you put it down, for the most part, it stays on and it doesn't smear or transfer to your other things. And we're going to do a clear coat over this. And I just didn't want to wait on the IOD ink to dry. I like it too, but it takes a long time to dry, and this stuff does not. It dries within seconds, but I think it has a higher chemical content, so you know, there's that. So I'm just randomly putting some black text in the background. I thought this would tie in that black rim and make this be a gorgeous background because we're going to be adding some gorgeous flowers to this. I really struggled with what I wanted to put on here, and I settled with the transfer. I hope you guys like it as much as I do, and we've got something cool we're going to do to this still coming up. Once I put both these transfers on, I went ahead and added some of that gold paint on the edges. I just used my finger and just randomly rubbed it around all the edges to give it a little bit of a highlighted effect. And once I finish that, we're going to be using this vintage old chain as a hanger. Now, whoever buys this can use it to hang, or they can leave it sitting like in a plate rack or one of those little things you can sit things up with, a photo holder. But I thought this gold chain would just be so cool because it's kind of vintage and it's very heavy and it has this patina to it. Now, I'm not sure what this came off of, but I found it in my stash and I save everything, so who knows. So all I'm going to do is take my crocodile and punch some holes in this tray and then add some of those hooks on the end and then attach it to this tray. And this tray is finished. You guys will have to let me know what you think about this one. This next project is really easy. I found this previously black painted sign. I think it had text on it or some type of saying, and I started to make a project, but I didn't. It's a wood, just tall sign, and I painted it with a little black dress and sealed it with that matte chalked clear coat by RUSTOLEUM. Now I'm just using some of these stamps from IOD, the two different bird ones, and using some of the branches and the birds just to make a scene on here. I think this black and white really ends up being quite shabby looking, even though we don't really do any distressing or anything, because I like the black and white look, but the white gives it that shabby look to me. So I just use the stamps to put the birds on branches and connect them, and then add a bee at the bottom. Now, you want to be mindful that if you do black and white, that you seal the black underneath and then seal the white on top. But you have to be careful when you sand black and white together because you can really turn it into a mess. So that's why I don't really sand anything white that has black underneath of it. Unless that's the look I'm going for that distressed, and it turns it into kind of a gray color. This, I wanted to stay crisp black and white, so we just go ahead and roll some of that paint on all the edges of this to give it sort of a distressed look without having to do any sanding. And this one is done. I put a sawtooth hanger on the back of this, and now this can fit just about into any decor. Let me know what you think about this one. This next project, I really struggled with this one. I don't think I cared for the birdhouse. It was very pristine, and although I did a few things to make it look older, it just, I don't know. You guys will have to let me know. So I added some molds to this using some of my IOD molds, and I'd originally painted this white and started it quite a few times and never really got anywhere. So I thought I would get it out and shabby it up for this video, but I just didn't love the colors when I finished with it. What I'm doing right now is just making the molds, adding them with that TITEBOND triple thick glue, and letting them set up. I do add a few to the front of this, and then I go ahead and start adding some of this gorgeous paper. It's a Prima product, and it is this, it's called tissue paper, but to me it's more like fabric. Now I love this color. This is gorgeous, or this pattern. The paper is not the problem. It's just the colors that I chose, so I'm super interested to see what you guys have to say about this one. This tissue paper is really inexpensive. I got this off Etsy. It was like $7 and something, and plus I think there was a few dollars shipping, and you get 2 rolls of this. So it's the same thing, but 2 of these sheets. And it feels like almost like dryer sheet material, but you put it on the same way that you would anything else. I just use Mod Podge. I'm cutting it down to fit 3 sides of this because the front we're going to leave, well, we're not going to leave it plain, but we're not going to have this tissue paper on there. once I get the Mod Podge underneath, and then of course I put it on top, I let this dry, look like just like you would regular decoupage paper, and then when it's finished, I go ahead and sand off the edges to give it that smooth edge look. You can cut this even closer in, but I just like sanding the edges. To me, it just gives it a more finished look versus having cut edges, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to be using this Folk Art Barely Pink paint, and I'll tell you, well, first I'll go ahead and mix this with some salt wash because where I have the molds on there, I definitely want some filler to kind of go in around the cracks in the molds, but I was disappointed in this paint. For the most part, Folk Art and Waverly chalk paint cover really, really well. And then of course the DIY clay paint covers great, but this stuff was so sheer when I put it on. And I don't know if it's just because of the light color. And of course I use a lot of dark colors, but even white chalk paint covers way better than this. You can see here how light it is. So the first coat I'm just kind of brushing on sloppily, and then the second coat I'm going to take my brush and tap it on and give it more of a pounced look instead of having all those brush strokes. So I do put 2 coats of this on here. So once I do that and let it dry, here comes all of the work that I do for no reason. Well, I don't know that it's no reason, but so I start out with this lavender because I thought, oh, you know, look at the lavender in this, and then I of course have some of this black because there's also some black, or it's more of a navy. And I thought, okay, I'm going to kind of blend this and leave a little bit of the pink showing through. And the more I kept doing it, the more I hated it and felt like it was looking like one of those 90s sponged walls with the weird colors. I don't know. So what I end up doing is I kind of go back over all of that with the same paint, but I blend it to where the black and the lavender has this like gray purpley hue to it. I don't know. Like I said, this project really, I don't know if it was the light pink, you know, I really wanted this to have that moody, shabby feel, but for me, I mean, see right there, that just kind of looked so wall sponge to me. So I just take those paint colors and I start blending them to kind of get this, it's really a gray look with that lavender undertone, and it does blend really well with this decoupage paper that's on it. So I end up doing that around the base and then on the roof of it, and then I get so tickled sometimes when I watch myself on here, and you guys comment on it, so it's not a secret or anything like that. So I decided that maybe it was the pink that I didn't like, you know, at this point. So I get out more of a blush color or skin tone pink from my Fusion, and then I thought, see, there we go, and then I thought this lighter pink was a little bit different color, but honestly it ended up being about the same color that I had on there. But it does tone the pink back some and give it a little bit of a warmer tone, which I do end up liking better. I don't know that I like it, but I like it better. And I get some of that gray off of the face of this, which I think was just making the molds look dirty. I don't know. I know I keep saying I don't know, but this thing really threw me. So the reason I'm leaving this in here is, of course, as always, I want you guys to know that I don't love every project I do. And sometimes I don't even like them. But the thing is, it's the processes that I like to leave in here. It's letting you know that everything that I create is not something that's just this great piece. Not that I think it is anyways, but the real stuff. So here we go. Here's the next step. I decided I was going to use this silver, and that was way too light. It was a silver Prima wax, which I love it on that gray at the top. So I grab out my other really old dark iron. I think this is like an ironstone, and it definitely fit better. And then I grab out gold Rub and Buff. You know, we just had to throw everything but the kitchen sink at this point because I just was not loving it, and I need to get over the fact that I'm not going to love everything I make. It's not supposed to be perfect. So here it is. You guys will have to let me know what you think about this one. I did price it and put it in my booth, even though I didn't love it. This next project is a tag that's supposed to be like a chalkboard. It's got that really slick feeling, so I went ahead and gave it a coat of this Fusion Slick Stick. Now you could probably just use a coat of some type of chalk paint as the base and then go over it, but I wanted to make sure that nothing peeled off of this. Once I let that dry, we're going to turn this into something pretty cool using this little frame and some of this decoupage paper. I'm showing you these. My friend Beth over at Aunt Bee's Attic sent me these all as little freebies to show you all some of the new papers that she has in. These things are amazing and they feel really nice and they go on really well. They're not real thin, but they're not too thick. And look at this paper. It's a large sheet. Isn't that gorgeous? So I went through these and I found this beautiful bird image that I'm going to be using in our frame because we're going to give this a really rustic, French, shabby, sort of Marie Antoinette colors. So I knew this bird would work out perfect. So I went ahead and painted the inside of that frame with white, the little piece, and then Mod Podge this on and let it dry, and now I'm just sanding off those edges. I also painted the frame itself black, and as you can see, I cracked it. So what I end up doing is putting a little bit of clay on that crack. Once we put on all these molds I'm showing you, you're not going to be able to see that crack anyways. So I glue down the frame to the board, not yet, but when I do, I use this triple thick glue, and I pulled my molds out. I didn't use clay because I didn't want to wait on them to dry, but I needed something that I could mold and be soft. So after I'd put the resin in, I pulled it out before it got completely hard so I could still shape these to my frame. I glued them on, and now we are going to put a coat over this. I had painted this, I forgot to tell you, I painted this tag once I got the slick stick. I painted it a solid coat of black DIY little black dress and sealed it. It's really important that you know I did seal it. So now I put this white coat on, and I am not sealing it. I don't need to because I need it to be able to come back through, and it doesn't mind. I don't mind if I need to show some of the black through this white as well. Once I get this coat on and I let it dry, then we're going to start adding the real color that I want on this, which is going to be the gorgeous sort of blues and aquas, which is not showing up very well right now. Once you see the photos, you'll see it definitely is a lot more blue in that little bird photo. So I'm gonna, sorry, I missed a step. I'm painting the molds black because we're gonna make them look kind of like aged copper. So I need them to be black. So I'm painting those. I'm letting those dry while we work on the blues. I'm using this sort of powder blue, which is, I think it's Sea Spray, and then Sea Glass. One's from Folk Art and the other one is the DIY clay paint. So I'm going ahead in with this sort of muted color because I need it to tone down the sea glass color. So I'm going to be blending those two, even though I don't need either one of them to be dry. I just need them to kind of be some of one and some of the other. And I'm doing this very sloppily because we're going to be doing other stuff to this. So it doesn't matter how this looks because it's going to be covered a lot and blended with other things. So once we get this coat on, then I do let this dry, and then I don't seal it again because I need this to be able to rub back through. So I'm adding some dark teal just to kind of have some areas that's toned back. I don't really think this step is necessary, but I thought I might need some dark blue in this. And like I said, where the black starts coming through, you don't really notice this once we do everything we do to it. Before I do my next steps, I want to go ahead and get some of that black coming back through, and the easiest way to do that with this type of paint is use a wet wipe and rub some of it back through and some sandpaper to sand some of it back through. And I just want it to look like it's kind of chipped off the edges, not everywhere, but just in certain places. So I go ahead and do that until I get it how I like. Now, this is a step you're not supposed to do and then paint on, but I wanted to tone that blue back and I wanted to use white wax to do it. And I've painted over white wax before or over wax before, even though you're not supposed to, but trust me, sometimes it does work. So I'll go ahead and wax that blue completely back, and then I wipe over it a little bit with my damp towel. And now we're going to do a little bit of some rusting. So I've got out a couple different colors of oranges and dark browns, and I'm just taking some white paint right now and kind of going over areas to make this look sun bleached and sort of faded. And that white dry brushing is going to do that. I'm just using white DIY clay paint to dry brush over a lot of this blue before we move on to this step. So in order to do the rust effect, you can do this many different ways, and I'm just using cinnamon and orange and brown paints. There's lots of different techniques. You can look them up on YouTube. I've done this before. I think I used this technique before. I didn't use bright orange a lot of the times. You can also use yellow paint. That does make a difference, but I didn't use any today. So I'm just, once I put my paint down, I'm spreading the cinnamon on top, and then I'm going back in with more paint to kind of get that cinnamon a little wet and add that dark brown, and just tapping it in areas where I think that it might have dripped or might have fell or leaked down. And in a little bit you're going to see me add water to it, which makes a big difference. So definitely think about using baby wipes when you're doing this, and water, because it definitely makes that paint sort of drip out like it's actually rusted and drip down. The biggest part I've found with doing rusting is to just play with it until you get it how you like it. You can always pull up pictures or photos on Pinterest, or maybe you're someone that did something you really liked and just kind of look at it and kind of get the feel for it. But as I do this each time, I feel like I'm definitely adding something to it to make it even better. So I want to take this time while I'm still doing this to thank everybody that has subscribed to my channel. And if you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that button. If you're on your phone or smart tablet, when you click on CozyJunkStudio, right underneath of that you will see subscribe. And it depends on if you have black background or white background on your phone, but the subscribe button is either white or black. It is not red anymore. YouTube changed it quite a few months ago, and it is black now on my phone when I look at it. But I do have you can have your YouTube on dark mode or light mode. If you have it on light mode, the whole background's white around your videos, but you can change that to dark mode and make the whole background black, which is what I have mine on because I watch it at night and I don't want that big white screen. I love the black background. So if you're looking for the subscribe button, it is not red anymore. It is black or white, and it's underneath the channel name that you're wanting to subscribe to. So once I finished with my rust effects, I did go back a little bit with that dry brushing of the white paint, and now I'm just taking this copper patina. It's called Pennies from Heaven DIY. You can use copper colored paint for this, and I'm just going over the whole area, and then I do a little bit on the edges. Now this stuff's pretty bright, and you know, this is a very rustic piece, sorta. It's like glam rustic. So I dry this and I add some of the Fusion metallic. This is bronze. I love this stuff. It has like a green, almost a green tint. So I thought it would tone this back while still keeping that metallic look. Once I do that on it, I go ahead and take my baby wipe and rub some of it back so the black will come through and make this also look distressed. And I'm sorry, while I was talking, I did stamp the word Paris and just some text on that label down there. And I do go back over that and tone that white back down too a little bit later. But I think this is about the last step. I'm not sure we do anything else other than rub this back some with that baby wipe. Yeah, there we go. I've rubbed it back some, and now I'm doing the same thing on this label. And I don't end up putting a ribbon around this or anything in that hole up there. Do you guys think I should put something up there? I thought about it, but twine just looked too rustic and ribbon looked too fresh. So I don't know, maybe a torn piece of fabric of some sort. But let me know what you think about that. Oh yes, one more step. So I wanted to shadow around this frame just a little, so I added some dark wax, and I wanted to shadow around my bird because that paper just looked really new and fresh. So I went ahead and shadowed around it as well, just a little bit. And then I had sealed that with Mod Podge, so that stuff was easy to wipe back if I got too much on because the paper felt more like plastic where it had a coat on it. But I didn't need to. I did a pretty good job of just shadowing that. Let me know what you all think of this one. Is it too drastic? Is it too rustic? Curious to see what you guys have to say about this one. I really enjoyed making this one, and I do like it. All right, this next one's going to be really, really easy. We're going to take this gorgeous little frame. It's already beautiful just the way it is, but I wanted to flip it, so we're going to be adding this Apothecary paint on here. We're going to give it a one good coat, really is all it took. I'm going to let that dry, and then we're going to put a coat of white wax on here, making sure to get down in all those crevices really good. And then I'm going to wipe back quite a bit of that. I didn't want it to be too overly white waxed because we're going to be using some dark wax on here. Before we do that though, I had taken a paint inlay and put it on the paper that came inside of this frame. Now you'll see I'm pulling it off, and look how gorgeous and easy this thing comes off and stays on that piece of paper. Yes, see, it's even curling up. So I go ahead and clear coat that, which they say you should spray because it will can smear the paint, but it did not. I let that dry and I place it in my frame, and then I thought that I needed to darken this up some. Even though it was beautiful without the dark wax, I go ahead and add that, wipe it back, and then add some gold rub and buff. Let me know, did you like this before I dark shabbied it? Did you like it the lighter color? Or maybe you liked the frame to begin with and not this color. But this is really easy. The paint inlay worked perfectly on this paper. First time I'd ever used it on a paper product. Let me know what you think of this one. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comment section below. I hope you all have loved these painting videos, the last 2 videos, because we are going to be doing something a little different in the next video. I hope you're ready. Again, thank you all for watching, and I will see you real soon. Bye-bye.